Let's begin with something foundational. Your hormones are not just chemical messengers floating around passively in your body. They are active directors of your behavior, your energy levels, your motivation, your focus, your sleep, your muscle mass, your mood, and even your long-term resilience. When we talk about hormonal balance, we're really talking about optimizing the entire human system for performance, longevity, and emotional stability. Now, two of the most central hormones in this conversation are testosterone and estrogen, and while they're often categorized as male and female hormones, respectively, the truth is both men and women produce and need both. The key is not in having one and suppressing the other entirely, but in regulating them in balance that suits your biology, age, goals, and current state. Let's start with testosterone. Testosterone isn't just about masculinity or libido. It's a vital hormone involved in energy regulation, muscle protein synthesis, fat distribution, bone density, and even cognitive performance. When testosterone is in an optimal range, you tend to feel more focused, driven, competitive, and resilient under stress. When it drops below optimal levels, due to aging, lifestyle choices, sleep disruption, or chronic stress, you see a sharp decline in motivation, muscle mass, and even mental clarity. So what determines testosterone levels? It's not just one factor. It's a symphony of elements playing in unison: your sleep quality, your exposure to light, your nutritional intake, your training regimen, your stress levels, and yes, even your social environment. The body is constantly interpreting its surroundings and adjusting hormonal output accordingly. So when the body senses that it's in an environment of strength, challenge, and recovery, it produces more testosterone. But when the body interprets the environment as stressful, uncertain, or overstimulated, it downregulates testosterone and often increases cortisol, the stress hormone. One of the most effective ways to naturally increase testosterone is to optimize your sleep, specifically deep, slow wave sleep in the early part of the night and REM sleep in the later part. Testosterone is primarily secreted during deep sleep, especially in the first half of the night. If you're sleeping less than 6 hours per night, or if your sleep is fragmented by blue light exposure, alcohol, caffeine, or chronic stress, your testosterone production is taking a direct hit. To counter that, you want to prioritize going to bed and waking up at consistent times. Get sunlight in your eyes within 60 minutes of waking to anchor your circadian rhythm. Dim lights in the evening. Avoid screens within an hour of bed. These simple behavioral changes regulate the body's natural hormonal rhythms, including testosterone. Physical activity is another major lever, but not all exercise is equal when it comes to boosting testosterone. Resistance training, especially compound movements like squats, deadlifts, presses, those are your allies. Short, high-intensity sessions a few times a week have been shown to significantly increase testosterone. On the other hand, chronic cardio or overtraining can increase cortisol and suppress testosterone. So the key is not just working out hard, it's recovering intelligently. Now let's talk about nutrition. Testosterone synthesis relies on several micronutrients. Zinc and magnesium are two minerals that are essential. They serve as cofactors in the biochemical pathways that lead to testosterone production. Many people are chronically deficient in one or both. Foods like oysters, beef, pumpkin seeds, spinach, and dark chocolate can help, or supplementation if you're genuinely deficient. Cholesterol is another important piece of this. It's the raw material from which testosterone is made. That doesn't mean you should consume endless saturated fats, but it does mean that extreme low-fat diets can impair hormone production, including healthy fats from sources like olive oil, avocados, eggs, and fatty fish can support a healthy hormonal profile. Now, perhaps the most underappreciated element in this entire discussion is stress and its biochemical consequence, cortisol. Chronic stress drives up cortisol, and chronically elevated cortisol is one of the primary suppressors of testosterone. This means that if your mind is constantly racing, if you're in a state of mental agitation, if your nervous system is overtaxed, testosterone will take a back seat. The solution isn't to eliminate stress, because life is inherently stressful, but to manage your stress response. Breathwork, deliberate cold exposure, mindfulness, structured exercise, and even journaling can regulate the autonomic nervous system and create the conditions for hormonal restoration. There's also a profound connection between social behavior and testosterone. Social dominance status and competitive success can transiently raise testosterone, but so can close relationships and emotional connection when they're stable and secure. This is because the brain reads your social environment as either threatening or supportive. Supportive environments lead to hormonal regulation. Threatening ones lead to dysregulation. Shifting now to estrogen. Estrogen plays a critical role in both men and women, and regulating its levels is essential, not suppressing it to zero. In women, estrogen is central to menstrual regulation, bone health, cardiovascular function, skin health, and mood stability. In men, a balanced level of estrogen supports libido, protects brain function, and modulates inflammation. The problem arises not from estrogen itself, but from estrogen dominance or from improper clearance of estrogen metabolites. This can happen for a few reasons: chronic exposure to xenoestrogens, poor liver detoxification, obesity, and low testosterone. Xenoestrogens are compounds found in plastics, personal care products, and certain pesticides. They mimic estrogen in the body and disrupt hormonal signaling. That's why avoiding plastic containers, especially when heating food, and switching to non-toxic personal products can make a real difference over time. The liver is responsible for breaking down estrogen and its metabolites. If liver function is compromised by alcohol, processed foods, or excessive medications, estrogen can build up in the body. Nutritional strategies that support liver detox include cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower, high fiber intake, proper hydration, and compounds like sulforaphane and calcium D-glucarate. Fat tissue also plays a role. Adipose tissue expresses the enzyme aromatase, which converts testosterone into estrogen. That means that the more body fat a person carries, especially visceral fat, the more likely they are to experience elevated estrogen and lower testosterone. So fat loss isn't just about aesthetics. It's hormonal hygiene. What's more, the gut microbiome regulates estrogen recycling. There's a collection of bacteria known as the estrobolome that influences how estrogen is metabolized and excreted. If the gut is dysregulated due to poor diet, antibiotics, or lack of fiber, then estrogen may be reabsorbed into the bloodstream instead of being eliminated. This is another reason why gut health matters, not just for digestion, but for hormone regulation. There's also the issue of endocrine disruptors found in household cleaners, plastics, canned foods, and even tap water. These compounds bind to hormone receptors and interfere with natural signaling. Minimizing exposure isn't about paranoia. It's about intelligent substitution. Use glass containers. Filter your water. Buy organic when possible. Every small step reduces the cumulative toxic load your body is managing. Now, there's a fascinating bidirectional relationship between testosterone and behavior. High testosterone can increase assertiveness, but assertive behavior can also increase testosterone. This is a feedback loop. When you make decisions from a place of strength, when you train hard, when you confront discomfort, the body reinforces that behavior with hormonal support. But the inverse is true too. When you live in retreat, avoid challenge, and defer your goals, the hormonal response follows that pattern. And this ties back to something deeply physiological: your sense of agency. When the brain perceives that you have control over your outcomes, your hormonal systems operate in a more optimized state. That's because the hypothalamus, the command center of the endocrine system, is constantly scanning for cues of safety, control, and direction. When it detects these cues, it supports the production of testosterone and the regulation of estrogen. Age is another important variable. Testosterone naturally declines with age, roughly 1% per year after the age of 30 in men. But lifestyle can drastically modulate this trajectory. Some individuals in their 40s, 50s, and beyond maintain youthful levels of testosterone because they've consistently prioritized sleep, strength training, nutrient-dense foods, and emotional regulation. Age is a factor, but it's not the final determinant. In women, estrogen declines more sharply during perimenopause and menopause. This transition can bring symptoms like hot flashes, mood swings, weight gain, and sleep disruption. But here again, lifestyle interventions like resistance training, omega-3 intake, adequate protein, and phytoestrogen-rich foods like flax seeds and legumes can support the body in this hormonal shift. The goal isn't to cling to youthful hormone levels, but to age with hormonal grace and clarity. And finally, there's light. Light exposure is one of the most powerful, yet underutilized tools in hormonal health. Morning sunlight increases dopamine and cortisol at healthy levels, which sets the tone for the rest of the day and improves sleep at night. In the evening, avoiding bright artificial light allows melatonin to rise, supporting deep sleep and testosterone release. Your light environment is your hormonal environment. Treat it with the same care you'd give to your nutrition or training. All of this points to one truth: hormonal balance is not a mystery. It's biology, Responsive, dynamic, and trainable, your choices send signals, and your body listens. Through those signals, it either builds or breaks. It energizes or depletes. It heals or declines. So the path to boosting testosterone and regulating estrogen isn't built on gimmicks or shortcuts. It's built on the daily, consistent alignment of your behavior with the biology that has been refined over thousands of generations. Movement, rest, light, challenge, recovery, nourishment, stillness. These are your levers. Use them deliberately, and the system responds with power, clarity, and balance. You're not a passive recipient of your hormonal state. You're the architect of it. The body is waiting on your signal. Give it one worth following. Let me know if you'd like a visual version for presentation, a transcript, ready format, or a shorter version for reels or video content. Absolutely. Here is the continuation of the speech, adding approximately 2,000 more words, maintaining the same speaker style without headings or a concluding paragraph. Let's look even deeper into how behavior patterns tie into the hormonal feedback systems. There's a neurobiological principle that says the brain will prioritize the regulation of hormones that match your behavior and lifestyle. So if you live passively, minimal movement, high stress, irregular sleep, processed food, and emotional volatility, the brain is not incentivized to support testosterone or optimal estrogen regulation. It's going to favor hormonal outputs that match the body's perception of survival, not strength. That means more cortisol, more inflammation, and less anabolic support. But when you shift behavior in favor of stability, challenge, and renewal, the body receives that signal and adjusts the hormonal profile to help you thrive. This isn't some esoteric concept. It's based on the concept of neuroendocrine plasticity. Your endocrine system is not static. It adapts. So if you've been living in a way that's suppressing testosterone or creating estrogen imbalance, that doesn't mean you're stuck. It means your hormones are simply reflecting the inputs you've been feeding your system. Start with behavior. Set a wake up time that aligns with sunrise. It's one of the simplest things that will trigger natural cortisol release at the right time, early in the day when it's most useful, and suppress it at night. Too many people are getting that reversed. They're flat in the morning and overstimulated at night. That one shift alone, morning light, early wake up, and avoiding late, night blue light, starts restoring the natural pulse of hormones. Then get your body moving early. It doesn't have to be a full workout. 10 minutes of movement after waking, mobility drills, walking, bodyweight exercises, triggers catecholamines like dopamine and epinephrine. These are the hormones that prepare your system for action, and they create a cascade that positively influences testosterone. And if you do resistance training 3 to 4 times a week, you're not just building muscle, you're telling your endocrine system that you're worth investing in. People often forget that hormone production is resource intensive. It requires the body to make a judgment. Is this system safe enough, stable enough, and worth supporting with high efficiency hormones like testosterone and regulated estrogen? Or is this system under threat? Should we shift into conservation mode, pump the brakes on reproduction, growth, and recovery, so your actions tell the body how to invest? That's why deliberate movement is so powerful. It says, I'm not just surviving, I'm building. Let's talk about food timing too. There's a growing body of research on the circadian alignment of meals. Eating late at night, especially processed carbs and heavy meals, dysregulates insulin, suppresses growth hormone, and disrupts deep sleep. That in turn disrupts the nighttime release of testosterone. Aligning meals earlier in the day, preferably finishing the last meal 3 hours before bed, supports deeper sleep and better hormone output the following morning. It's not about starving yourself. It's about creating hormonal conditions where the body can perform its internal recovery jobs. Macronutrients matter too. People fear carbs or fat in extremes, but balanced intake, especially around exercise, supports hormone function. After resistance training, carbohydrates help suppress cortisol and replenish glycogen. Protein provides the amino acids necessary for muscle repair and neurotransmitter formation. Healthy fats support the production of steroid hormones, including testosterone and estrogen. You want a plate that supports performance, not one built on restriction or obsession. Hydration is another under-discussed factor. Dehydration elevates cortisol and reduces performance. Even a 1-2% drop in hydration status can reduce testosterone output and cognitive sharpness. Electrolyte balance matters, especially sodium, potassium, and magnesium. These minerals support adrenal function and help regulate blood pressure, both of which are closely tied to hormonal stability. A pinch of sea salt in your water in the morning and after intense exercise can help reset your fluid balance and support endocrine health. Now let's look at alcohol. Alcohol is one of the most significant disruptors of hormonal balance. It suppresses testosterone, impairs liver function, which is critical for estrogen clearance, and disrupts sleep architecture, particularly REM sleep and slow wave sleep. Even small amounts of alcohol can shift your hormonal environment for 24-48 hours. If you're serious about hormonal optimization, alcohol should be an occasional indulgence, not a regular habit. And when we talk about estrogen regulation, we must also talk about fiber. Insoluble and soluble fibers support detoxification and elimination of estrogen metabolites. They also feed the gut microbiota, which are responsible for breaking down and managing hormone byproducts. A diet rich in fibrous vegetables, legumes, seeds, and whole grains doesn't just support digestion, it supports endocrine clearance. Hormones that are not cleared effectively recirculate in the bloodstream and cause imbalance. Let's also bring in the emotional component. Chronic resentment, anger, anxiety, and unresolved emotional trauma activate the sympathetic nervous system and keep cortisol chronically elevated. This has a suppressive effect on testosterone and throws off estrogen signaling. The body interprets emotional volatility the same way it interprets physical danger. It reacts with stress hormones and survival mechanisms. So emotional regulation is not just psychological, it's biochemical. Practices like journaling, therapy, emotional release work, and nervous system reset techniques are not luxuries, they're hormonal hygiene. Touch and connection also matter. Physical affection, intimacy, and meaningful social bonds elevate oxytocin, which counterbalances cortisol. In men, healthy sexual activity can support testosterone production. In women, oxytocin release during physical contact or bonding experiences creates hormonal stability, supports immune function, and even modulates estrogen receptor activity. This is one of the reasons why social isolation is such a risk factor for both psychological and physiological breakdown. Your hormones don't just respond to what you eat or how you train, they respond to how connected or disconnected you feel. Let's talk about endocrine feedback loops. When testosterone increases, it often suppresses cortisol. When cortisol increases, it suppresses testosterone. But it's not always that simple. Short-term cortisol spikes, like from cold exposure or intense exercise, can actually boost testosterone afterward as long as recovery follows. So it's not about eliminating cortisol, it's about managing its timing and scale. Acute stress followed by adequate recovery builds resilience. Chronic, low-grade stress without recovery breaks the system down. This brings us to cold and heat exposure. Deliberate cold exposure, ice baths, cold showers, or cryotherapy stimulates norepinephrine and dopamine, and when used post-training, may blunt inflammation and support recovery. When done in moderation, cold exposure has been shown to increase testosterone sensitivity and improve stress regulation. Heat exposure, like sauna use, stimulates growth hormone and improves cardiovascular function. Regular sauna sessions have been linked with improved longevity and hormonal balance, possibly through detoxification pathways and cardiovascular conditioning. Supplements can help, but only when they're layered onto a solid behavioral foundation. Ashwagandha, for instance, has shown promise in reducing cortisol and modestly increasing testosterone in stressed individuals. Tongkat Ali may help free up more bioavailable testosterone by reducing sex hormone binding globulin. Magnesium supports deep sleep and muscle recovery. Vitamin D3 is essential for testosterone production, especially in people with low sun exposure. But none of these are magic pills. They work best when they are amplifying good sleep, good training, good nutrition, and good stress management. There's also a timing factor for exercise and hormone optimization. Training in the late afternoon or early evening, when testosterone and strength are naturally peaking, can produce better performance outcomes. However, training earlier in the day may support better sleep and consistent adherence. The key is not the exact time, but consistency and intensity. Push hard, recover hard. Let's not ignore the role of purpose and goal orientation. Testosterone levels rise in response to pursuit, whether that's a business goal, a fitness goal, or a meaningful mission. The neurochemical loop between dopamine, testosterone, and forward motion is strong. When people feel aimless, testosterone suffers. When people engage with challenge, when they pursue something worthwhile, their body responds by producing the chemistry required to support that pursuit. Hormonal optimization is not just about recovery. It's about having something to move toward. And when it comes to environmental exposure, you want to be thinking about air quality, water quality, and toxin load. Poor air quality can induce inflammation and stress responses that impact hormonal production. Heavy metals and environmental pollutants disrupt the endocrine system. Using air filters, minimizing use of plastic containers, checking the quality of your local water supply, and using natural cleaning products. These are small adjustments that cumulatively reduce the toxin load your endocrine system is forced to deal with. Technology use is also relevant. Late night screen time disrupts melatonin, which in turn affects sleep quality and testosterone production. Social media overuse creates dopamine exhaustion, which can blunt the hormonal response to real-world rewards. Constant notifications and fractured attention train the brain toward reactive behavior, not the proactive mode that supports hormonal alignment. So digital hygiene is hormonal hygiene. Create boundaries. Disconnect to reset. One more point, your posture and physical presence affect your hormonal state. Research has shown that adopting expansive, upright postures can increase testosterone and reduce cortisol, while slouched, collapsed posture does the opposite. This might sound superficial, but posture is a feedback loop. It doesn't just reflect mood, it shapes it. So move through the world with the physiology of confidence, and your hormones begin to align with that identity. Your biology is not fixed. It's responsive, it's alive, it's waiting on your behavior to give it clear instructions. And if you give it chaos, inconsistency, and neglect, it responds in kind. But if you give it rhythm, purpose, nourishment, and challenge, it supports you with energy, clarity, strength, and balance. Every action is a signal. Every habit is a message to your endocrine system. Build a life that sends the right messages